And away we go. It's the DFS Early Bird presented by Awesemo.com. Dan Strafford, Dave Lockren with you on this Friday morning. We are back, and I am in my downstairs bathroom because we're getting our basement done. But that is not the focal point of this show. It's great wallpaper, though, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest. This is solid.
Is it like stars and hearts and stuff.
It's flowers. What eyes do you have?
From back here, it looks like stars and some hearts. Either way, brutal.
Flowers. It's pretty straightforward. So we got flowers on the wall.
Having wallpaper in this day and age, that's another story.
I can explain. It is the one room we didn't paint. We didn't tear down the wallpaper. It's our second bathroom, so we didn't do it yet.
Wallpaper is not very fun either.
No, it's not. But it is the kids' art room, so we'll give you the shot there. So that's all the kids' art in the background. But we have 9 games on tap.
They did the wallpaper?
Well, they did the art that's on the wallpaper.
Oh.
So we've used it as an art museum for the kids' stuff. Anyway.
The bathroom.
The bathroom. Yeah. Huh. That's how we feel about the kids' art.
So if I'm firing one off, I can admire all of the beautiful.
And Dave, after we're done recording, I'm going to grab that picture off the wall and share it with you because it's the creepiest effing image you've ever seen.
Is it like from is it Daddy's Home? Is it Daddy's Home?
Oh, I don't know. I've ever seen that, but you
didn't see.
When we get into point guard, I'm going to go grab it while you're doing analysis, and I'll hold it up after point guard. But we have 9 games. We are back after the NBA All-Star break. We do have injuries to talk about. We do have the Anthony Davis and Drew Holiday news that they will play, but play less and probably not play on back-to-backs. So that becomes a load management issue, which is one of my most hated phrases that have cropped up in NBA this year. But overall, Dave, any storylines or injuries you're tracking for today's slate? I know Chris Dunn, Derek White is questionable with a foot or an ankle, I think. And you have some other guys on the mend from injuries who are still have those Q tags for them. Anybody you feel worth mentioning here, at least could be pertinent for the slate?
I mean, Miles Turner's questionable with that bruised hip. That could definitely play a pretty big role. It's wild. Like, just rule them out after the break or say they're in. I mean, come on, give us one good day. You know, give us one remotely easy day. Fortunately, Adam had me swap the deep dive, so he's writing it on Friday, which makes my life a whole lot easier. I wrote it on Thursday, of course. So keep an eye on that. Tyreek Evans is questionable, but it looks like he's probably leaning closer to doubtful, saying he's might need an MRI. And when that's the case, it's probably unlikely that you're going to play the next day. Let's see. Guys like Chris Dunn are expected back. Anthony Davis, by the way, it looks like he's going to be limited to 25 minutes for the rest of the season. So if that stays true, then at least we'll have some guidance in terms of being able to fade him. Or, Dan, what'll be interesting is if his salary falls down far enough, will he be a topic of conversation in terms of actually considering him, depending on how he plays in that those allotted 25 minutes. Very interesting. Kawhi Leonard, Derek White, LaMarcus Aldridge, all probable. Same as Thomas Satoransky, also probable. Emmanuel Mudiay will return, so we'll see how that affects Dennis Smith Jr. Tyus Jones, after a long hiatus, is expected back. Mario Hezonja expected back. By the way, I usually don't mention the probables and the guys that are playing, but since we've had such a decent-sized layoff, I figure we'll get you back in it. Who else here? Noah is probable. Wilson Chandler remains out. Not that that's big.
Valanciunas out for Memphis.
Valanciunas is the big one. So is Kyle Anderson. Both of them are out. So that's pretty big news there, and we'll talk about Noah in a little bit. Here's a great one. Chandler Parsons, active.
That's one of the stranger, one of the stranger stories to track in the past couple of weeks, that they couldn't come up with a buyout, so he's rejoining the team.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, the amount of money that this dude has made by doing nothing is incredible. I mean, imagine being like a talented enough player, but injury prone to the point where you keep getting big contracts and literally never play.
Yep. Really,
really something. So, I'm almost done here. Jaren Jackson Jr. is questionable. That could be really big, because if Jaren Jackson sits, JaMychal Green is no longer with the team. He was traded at the deadline, right? He's actually facing his former team. So you have no more JaMychal Green. Jaren Jackson could potentially sit. You have no more Marc Gasol, and Jonas Valanciunas is out. So that means that guys like Ivan Rabb, whose minutes went, just went to nothing the very next, when Valanciunas started playing, those minutes went to nothing, to like 11 and 8 minutes, while Valanciunas played 21 and 23, and Joakim Noah in those 2 games played, pull it up, I accidentally pulled up Noah Vonleh, 18 and 20. So with Joe out, this could be a big deal. And the reason I say that, I guess we can talk about it later, but Rob and Noah had actually played some minutes alongside each other.
Yep.
So that could be really interesting. You could actually, maybe even see Rob start at the 4. Who knows? And then Markieff Morris doesn't look like he's going to play. I thought he was doubtful, but now I'm seeing questionable. Trey Lyles is out. Gary Harris is back. Dennis Schroeder and Jeremy Grant are both back. Dante Exum is out. Am I missing anything?
I think you've nailed it. I need you to look at the Zoom room.
Covington's out. And Covington and Ntilikina remain out for whatever that's worth. Okay, let's take a look.
I've already shown our viewers at home. So this is one of them that you deal with.
Yeah, that's creepy as shit. Why does she have hook feet?
I mean, why not? Come on.
If my daughter drew that, I might put her outside the house.
It's one of those moments where you like flip on the light middle of the night to use the bathroom, and you're like, "Oh crap, no, done. I'm done.
Oh, yeah.
I don't go to the bathroom anymore."
Legitimately creepy shit. I agree.
I love my kids. I really do. They're pretty awesome, but sometimes
other kids hate their art.
Yeah, exactly. This is time to hop in. We'll go point guard through center. Don't forget, as always, you get the NBA strategy show in the morning, which is with is Adam back? Is Adam back on Friday morning? Do we have Adam back for a strategy show?
No. I'm doing the strategy show.
Okay. Oh, you switched. Right. You wrote the deep dive. So, right. So
he got sick in Miami.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
I'm just kidding. He was adamant because I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure you're super sick, right? Yeah. So is the virus? I can't say that actually, but either way. He's like, I even went to bed early to make sure I was good, and then I woke up every hour.
Does it burn when he pees? Because that's not getting sick.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he actually was, but he should be back. Right, whether or not he's back, he's gonna be right in the deep dive, and he'll be on the deep dive with me.
Okay, so you get the strategy show around 9:15 Friday morning. That's East Coast time. And then you get the deeper dive at 5 p.m. live before lock around 6 or a little bit thereafter, leading you up to lock. And that's usually Spags and Eddie or Josh and Eddie. So tune in over on YouTube. Make sure to tune in to the strategy show as well. Listen to us. Give us the thumbs up on YouTube. Leave a comment. We'd love to read them. We'll read them here directly on the show or share them in Slack chat, share them on the website. And if you're listening on iTunes, make sure you're subscribing and leave a comment and a rating over there as well. We do appreciate it. No giveaway today, but still love you guys filling up the comment section to leave us some love. So appreciate that as always. So starting with point guard, we have a point guard who some of you may have heard of. His name is Russell Westbrook. Has a matchup with Utah here on a pretty solid streak of, was it 15 games? Is that where we're at? Or how? No, 10 games in a row with a triple-double. So he has a matchup here with Utah. He is adequately priced, I would say, for this matchup, 11-5 on a 9-game slate. Kemba Walker's 9-3 against Washington. You have Doncic with power point guard, and small forward eligibility at 9,100. Mitchell, Drew Holiday, who I did mention, is not in the same boat as Anthony Davis, but interim GM Danny Ferry did say that he would see reduction in minutes as well. So they're going to monitor his minutes moving forward. So something to keep in mind. Trae Young, Mike Conley, Levine, Lowry, and we move on from there. Top end, Westbrook, and then you drop to Walker. What do you think of the top end of point guard? And do you feel like this is a deep position on this slate, or are you trying to find some high-end price points to lock in some high upside?
Yeah, look, I think Westbrook's okay. I mean, I don't love the matchup. It could be worse, but not a whole lot worse. You know, it is absolutely a tough spot, and it's not one that I'm in love with here. 11-5, okay. And then George is $700 cheaper on DraftKings. You know, last game wasn't great, but really he'd still been producing at a pretty similar pace as Westbrook. On FanDuel, they're actually the exact same price at 11.8, both of them at 11.8. But we'll get to it. You got like Towns against New York. You got Jokic against that Dallas front court. Vooch against the Bulls. Again, a lot of really talented centers here. Kawhi Leonard facing his Spurs, but not really high on that. Kemba Walker, since Zeller has returned, averaging almost 1.4 fantasy points per minute. Just it makes a big difference for him. And excuse me, he's looked really good. 33% usage, 28% assist rate. Those numbers look solid. How much you're willing to pay for Kemba is a different story, but a home matchup against Washington, it is a really appealing spot. There's no denying that. I mean, I'd expect this game to see plenty of scoring. A 230 total here, Dan. Clear pace up spot for the Charlotte Hornets. It's the Wizards since the start of January are playing at a top 10 pace. Sorry, top 7 pace. So they're pretty much sustaining that pace throughout the season, which is really quite nice for a Hornets team that over that span is playing at the 5th slowest pace in the league. Now, Washington's defense has improved marginally, but it's still, 8th worst in the league over that span. It is a very, very appealing spot for Kemba Walker. I like him quite a bit here. I don't know if I'm getting to Westbrook. I'm sure he'll be sprinkled into some tournaments lineups, which makes sense, but I don't think you need to go there. You have Doncic as well, who, has he come back down to earth a little bit recently? Yeah, but you're still getting the minutes. You still have the usage. The triple-double upside is still very, very clear, right? I mean, he's still averaging, 8 assists and 10, 11 rebounds over his last 3 games. None of them triple-doubles, but still big numbers with a lot of upside. So I like Doncic as well. The point you made about Holiday is kind of interesting, though. Do we have any idea what Gentry plans on playing him from a minute per game standpoint?
No, we've gotten that sort of load management quote that both Anthony Davis and Drew Holiday would be on it. I haven't seen any specific numbers. I have a feeling with this is a guess, honestly, but with Holiday, it might be more back-to-backs. It might be more.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
or at least hoping.
Yeah.
But it's also possible that he stops playing 39 minutes a game.
Yeah, I could see him at 28 to 30, like that, like 28 to 30 and no back-to-backs.
What's interesting, though, is you're not really overpaying for him either, though. Right? You're 82 on DraftKings, 87 on FanDuel. Dude still has ample upside. And not only that, if Davis is only playing 25 minutes a game, if Holiday continues to play 35 minutes, you're going to be seeing probably, 20 of those minutes, maybe more, coming with Davis off the court. I'd say around 20. And that's pretty nice. You're getting half of your minutes, if not more, probably more actually, with Davis off. So I do like that. I never loved the Indy matchup, but it's not as bad now that they've dealt with some serious injuries. So I don't mind Holiday. I worry a little bit about those minutes there. I'm seeing stuff now that it's showing that we could actually see his minutes cut rather significantly. So this actually says we'll play reduced minutes rest of season. So for Drew Holiday, if that's the case, then you pretty much just have to stay away here. That's tough. That's pretty tough. So we'll have to see if there's any actual confirmation on what we're going to see in terms of minutes. Like, does minutes reduction mean he's not going to play 38 anymore and he might play 33, or is he going to play 27?
Sure.
I'll probably take a wait and see approach here. That's a little bit too concerning for me. Dennis Smith Jr. with Moutier back. I mean, what are we going to get here? That's another difficult one. We're seeing a lot of changes, following the All-Star break, and I really don't know what to make of it. With Moutier back and Dennis Smith sitting at 7K, it's another spot where I'd love to play him, but I probably won't. Honestly, I'd probably go down to Darren Collison, who's dropped to 5,700, has a great matchup against the Pelicans. A very, very bad defense, playing at a high pace or a fast pace. That's a very good spot, an appealing one to me, where you're getting the discount. Maybe not have the same upside as Smith, but at least you know he's going to play 30, 32 minutes. Smith could play fewer minutes, or he and Moutier play more alongside each other. It's possible, but that doesn't really work too well. They need to be ball dominant guys. Like we saw how inefficient Smith was when he was kind of just hanging around alongside Doncic,
Right.
not really active. So I don't like that very much. Trae Young should continue to see a whole lot of run. 7,800, he's getting up there. I mentioned I liked him at 8,200 on the slate before the All-Star break, but that was also a 3-game slate. This is a 9-game slate, so I don't mind pumping the brakes there a little bit. In terms of value, one guy does stand out to me, but it's difficult to say what type of numbers you'll get from him. But I definitely think that Teague is still too cheap. In his last 2 games, played 35 and 38 minutes. Derrick Rose being healthy over those games, so he has been healthy. Covington's still out. Not to say that matters a whole lot, but the thinner they are, the more they have to move guys over to the wing positions. And then you look at a guy and say Jared Bayless, his minutes came down. And Tyus Jones, you're not worried about that. Like, even if Teague only plays 34, 33 minutes at 5,900 in a very good matchup against the Knicks, I think he's very, very reasonable here. So there are a few guys that are worthy of being played in terms of value, but nobody that's just dirt cheap that you're saying, man, I have to get him into my lineup. Jeremy Lin played 25 minutes in his last game against Washington in his debut for the Raptors. But they were also dealing with a couple of injuries, so probably not going there. And then the last one I'll mention here before we move on, DeLon Wright. He played 26 minutes with Conley back. He's probably going to continue to play around 25 minutes. It is a pace-up spot against the Clippers, and he's very cheap. But that's really just like a bottom-of-the-barrel dart throw, hoping that he doesn't kill you and you want to pay up for several guys, and you don't have the cap space down below. Risky play for sure.
Any interest in someone like a Reggie Jackson on this slate? I know he hasn't been great, but minutes between 28 and 32, matchup with Atlanta, which has been, defensive rating second to last over the last 10 games, pace. I think they're, top 10? Any upside there to him at a $5K price point?
Yeah, I think Reggie's fine. Just one thing is that I've mentioned it a lot this season. When Ish Smith is out, it makes him a whole lot more appealing because he can actually get to that 35-minute mark.
Yep.
It's unusual, but when Ish Smith is out, we've seen it happen on several occasions. Actually, recently, 33, 35, 36, 37, 35 with Ish Smith out those games. Now that Ish Smith is healthy and not sitting out on the second end of back-to-backs, or at least it doesn't seem that he is, it definitely takes some shine off. But the pace-up spot against a really dreadful defense that allows a high rate of three-pointers, yeah, I think Reggie's a perfectly fine play. Ownership will probably play a role here because you have Reggie Jackson and then you have Collison and Teague, right? All of whom are not the highest upside guys, all of whom have pretty low floors, and all of whom are priced around that high 5K range. Ownership definitely should play a big role here because if everyone piles on Reggie Jackson and kind of forgets about Teague or Collison, no problem pivoting to pretty similar players from a fantasy point perspective.
All right, let's take our turn here to shooting guard, where we have Brad Beal as our top top salary guy at 9,200. Donovan Mitchell's at 8,300. We have Drew, who you talked about at length, which makes a ton of sense. It's really a wait and see with him. Levine, DeRozan, Lou Williams is at 7,100. Jamal Murray checks in at 6,300. Lamb, Satoransky, and then on. Not too many names here that are evoking too much confidence. I guess you got Andrew Wiggins from volume perspective at 6,500. But is it Beal or bust, or what do you got here at shooting guard?
Yeah, Brad Beal is in a pretty decent spot. You're going to be paying a premium, though. It's not like you're getting any discount on Brad Beal. And one of the big things was that Satoransky being out made a big difference. It made a big difference because he became the de facto point guard with Satoransky sidelined. With Thomas Satoransky expected to play, I lose interest in Beal. And I think you probably would be wise to look elsewhere at that price. I'm not saying you have to, but I probably will. I mean, I'm just not super high on that now that Satoransky's back, because Beal's, the assist upside was just massive. But you're right in saying that, dude, for 9 games, even on multi-position eligibility sites, this is a rough position.
Yep. Yeah, it's not looking too pretty. That is for damn sure.
No, it's not at all. Again, even on DraftKings, where you don't like, that's why Reggie Jackson might come into play and be a pretty damn popular, because he does have eligibility at shooting guard, which probably opens things up quite a bit. I think Bojan Bogdanovic is interesting because you're getting him against the Pelicans, and they've just really struggled defensively. And another thing with the Pelicans, this year is no different. They've struggled quite a bit against wing players that can shoot, that can score, that can get up threes, quick release on spot ups. Like that has been a problem area for them, no question. They're actually allowing the second highest efficiency to opposing small forwards this year, with the second most points allowed to the position, and also the second most rebounds and third most assists. Granted, you're not getting many dimes from Bojan Bogdanovic, but I do expect him to get plenty of shots up here, play around 34 minutes if this game stays close. Not a terrible play at a pretty weak position. Aside from that, if you want to pay up, there are some spots, but I don't know if I want to go there. Like, I'm not that interested in paying, $8K plus for Donovan Mitchell. That does not do all that much for me. DeMar DeRozan facing his former team now, this time facing them in Toronto, kind of interesting. I must say, I'm a little bit intrigued by this. If that's 7,300, you may just take the plunge, not even worrying too much about narrative, and more so, number one, was he playing injured? Was that ankle still bothering him? My guess, and that's what it is, it's just speculation, would be yes. Having those additional days off, 5-6 days off, whatever it was. Actually, what do you have, a week off? Yeah, he had.
Yeah.
Last time he played 12. No shit, he's had almost 10 days of rest. So yeah, the last game he played was the 12th. That, I like that a lot, actually. Get him back. You're still getting in, and before the break, 28, 19 shots, 19 plus in 3 straight games. You're going to get some bad games from him. He's also had a couple really brutal matchups recently. I may end up leaning pretty hard to DeMar DeRozan just because of that price point. The traveling back north of the border is a cherry on top, but it's not something that really guides your decision. And then Jeremy Lamb against Washington. He's when he gets hot, he's going to get the opportunities. He's going to play around 35 minutes in those games. And I think James Borrego has proven that he'll just kind of let him go when that's the case. Let me ask you this before we move to small forward. Do you have interest in any of these cheap Atlanta wing players like Bembry, who's gotten some backup point guard minutes and been pretty horrible with them? Because it looks like Jalen Adams is already or is still unlikely to play. I could be wrong, but I don't think he is. Or Kent Bazemore, who played 16 minutes with everyone out and Lynn gone, and then 27 minutes. Maybe Bazemore is interesting, but those minutes are still all over the place.
I feel like, you talked about things being in flux coming off the All-Star break, but coming off the trade deadline too, you just have these teams that are trying to figure out rotations. And for the Atlanta Hawks, I think they're trying to figure out their tank rotations. Like what team makes them resemble an NBA squad, but still will lose on a regular basis. So is it Bembry at point? Probably, behind Trae Young and giving up as many turnovers as possible. I think Bazemore is the guy of all of them at 4,200 that I'd be most inclined to go to, simply because we've seen in the past an upside there, where we've seen a consistency when given minutes that he can score and score in bunches. So at 4,200, I'd be comfortable going there. I'd also, especially on sites that do charge you for turnovers, Bembry's numbers are a little scary over those games he's been playing as the backup point. So
yeah, he's looked terrible. I think the interesting thing to follow here is So Bazemore played 27 minutes last game.
And Herder's questionable, right? Like that's the last I
Right.
saw. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, oh, you know what? You know what, Dan? He's been downgraded, it looks like, to doubtful.
Okay.
So that right there is that makes the decision a whole lot easier. That definitely makes my life easier. Now, mind you, that he didn't pick that injury up during the last game. He played 23 minutes, 25 before that. Herder's minutes have definitely been declining anyway. So keep that in mind that, Bazemore played 26 and Herder only played 23. Herder played 25 and Bazemore played 16 the game before that. So what I'm saying is, don't assume that Bazemore is going to play 39 just because of this.
Right.
Vince Carter's still getting some minutes. Justin Anderson, you can play him at the 3 or wherever you need. They do have a couple bodies that they can get, to fill that void. But I think you could probably put Bazemore, like, could be wrong, but I'd put him around 28, 29 minutes. And at that price tag, I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay with that, in a game that has a 3.5 point spread and a surprisingly high 223.5 total. But it is definitely a pace down spot for Detroit. Kind of have to bite the bullet at a bad position. Bazemore would probably be the guy.
I mean, the last time out, the Hawks lost to the Knicks, so we'll see how.
Yeah, they were 8.5 point favorites. Betting against the Hawks in that game was like the easiest bet. And you didn't have to bet the Knicks outright, but betting Knicks plus 8.5 on a franchise worst, like 18-game losing streak going into the All-Star break, that was such a money and easy bet. Like, you can't lose every game consecutively. The Sixers proved that a few years back. You just can't do it. And going in 8.5 point home favorites, where they're like 8-20 against the spread at home. That was such a good spot.
As we're recording now, I went with LeBron over 27 points and Lakers win bet tonight. See how that turns out, but that could be a fun one. I will say, looking at the game flows.
Did you hear what LeBron said? By the way, you know what? I'll wait till small forward. Go ahead.
It's activation time. Come on,
it's active. It's been activated.
It's been activated. It is interesting to see that Bazemore didn't get a ton of time on the court with Trae Young. So, looking at game flows, I guess Bembry was point when Bazemore was on the court. Yeah, that must have been for the most part.
Yeah, because Bembry was basically out there the whole time. He was out there. I think
they did line changes basically. Wow, Jesus.
Yep. But
until the fourth. Okay.
Here's an easier way to look at it, Dan. Bazemore actually only played like 2 minutes alongside Herder. He was he was his direct backup, outside of a few minutes left in the game where they played like 4 minutes together. But aside from that, he came in for Herder seemingly every rotation.
All right, let's talk small forward, where Bazemore obviously is eligible as well. Some of these other pieces for Atlanta are eligible here, but we have Paul George at the top at 10-8, so you do have a discount off Russell Westbrook, and we've seen George's upside on the year. Kawhi will have to defend the North against the invasion of a vengeful DeMar DeRozan. He's at 9,400. Luka Doncic is at 91. That aforementioned DeMar DeRozan no longer king in the North, 7,300. And then it gets dicey again. You have Gallo and Gordon and Wiggins. Otto Porter Jr. is at 6,200. Lamb, you mentioned earlier, at shooting guard. Thaddeus Young is here at 6K. What do you got at small forward?
Well, and yeah, but the whole LeBron James activating thing is pretty interesting. I've said I do believe he's lost a bit of a step, but we've seen it in seasons past. We've seen it so many times before where when LeBron says, okay, we need to win, we need to make a push to get in the playoffs, it's usually not into the playoffs. It's a push to, get the 1 or 2 seed. He does it. And I think he's still got a little something left in the tank. So we'll find out. We'll see what happens tonight, because this is a really important game and one that they're certainly going to need to win if they plan on, having any chance of competing for anything really. But so Paul George, this is where it gets tough, because in your head, you're like, is he going to sustain that shooting? And It's probably unlikely. Is he going to continue to play well? Yeah, he probably is. Against Utah, though, do you need to go there? I don't think you do. I don't mind George here. I just don't. I'm not in love with him. It's kind of the same way I feel about Westbrook. Like, there's no way I'm playing both of them in the same lineup. If that gives you a little bit better idea where I stand. So it's not like, oh, I like both of them so much. You'll end up with some of them because they're really two of the best players, not the two best players on this entire slate. It's kind of a weak slate given the 9 games. But I'm not super high on him. I'm interested to see what it looks like with building some balanced lineups. You maybe pay for like a 10K Towns or whoever at center, but not going to Paul and Westbrook and see how that turns out. You have DeRozan at 73 at this position. Doncic also eligible here on DraftKings. Aaron Gordon 6,600. We know he's a pretty volatile player, but that's not a bad price point at all against the Chicago Bulls. There are spots you can get to here. Otto Porter finally had a strong game with the Chicago Bulls, and he played 34 minutes. He's played 34 minutes in every game that he's played with them, and he started all of them. I think Otto Porter is perfectly reasonable. Orlando's defense has certainly been better lately, but they're just not that good of a team. So, this game probably stays competitive as well. Shooting guard and small forward, though, they don't offer that much, and that's just the truth. Like, Bazemore will be in play at this position. He will be in play at shooting guard, assuming that Herter, who's doubtful, is in fact ruled out. And you might even be looking, and this is gross, of course, but you might be looking at a Luke Kennard, who
that is pretty gross. That's
it certainly is. But since Reggie Bullock left, he's played 29, and 36 minutes, right? I think it's at least you have to at least keep that in mind that against Atlanta, that'll open things up. And he's faced Boston, Washington, and New York. One very difficult matchup, just in terms of pace and overall defensive efficiency, and then 2 that weren't too bad at all. But played 36 minutes last game, and he started that game, right? I know the game on the 8th, he did not start. I can't remember if he started the game on the 11th. Let me just give it a quick look here. Did he start that game? I guess it doesn't really matter, but no. See, Kennard came off the bench in each of the first 2 games. The reason it is important, Dan, he played 29 minutes off the bench in those games, but then he started and played an additional 7 minutes. So if he starts again, I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that he gets those Reggie Bullock numbers, 34, 36 minutes a night. They started Reggie Jackson, Bruce Brown, Luke Kennard, Griffin, and Drummond, and Luke Kennard played the entire 4th quarter. He played all but like 5 or 6 minutes in the first half. If you're giving me 35 minutes or even 30 plus minutes from Luke Kennard against Atlanta, I have no choice but to take the bait on that and hope that he's, a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy at 4K. Look, that is really inexpensive. And I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that he can get there. It shouldn't be that tough, because otherwise you're looking at, a Taurean Prince who, and I thought Prince would have a pretty solid season, especially with their lack of depth, but it's been a rough go for him. I'd rather just take a smaller a discount and go with Bazemore. Neither of them are going to do much ball handling, but yeah, look, Luke Kennard, the minutes he played last game, assuming he stays in the starting lineup and then it wasn't matchup based, who knows, maybe it was, but it's hard to believe that that's the case given the alternatives on that team. You have to consider him. You don't really have much of a choice. And I hate playing guys that just kind of live off the ball, but against Atlanta, where you're seeing a ton more possessions, so more opportunities to grab the fall face first, and some rebounds or some steals or some assists or even some 3-pointers. Luke Kennard's going to have the opportunities just as everyone else is.
Yep. No, it makes total sense. It's just Kennard's name has already been mentioned too many times on this podcast. I don't know what to do from here. Volume, guys, true. Any small forwards with high volume shooting, guys that maybe have the peripheral stats that are cheap here beyond a Kennard, or is this simply time to move on to power forward?
Well, James Harden, by the way, has 3 fouls in his first quarter. Let's see how D'Antoni
Yeah, I rostered
Uh,
him. So here we go.
let's see how D'Antoni navigates that. That's going to be really interesting, isn't it?
He's going to sit the entire second quarter. It's going to be terrible.
I don't know. I don't
I
know.
would
I
hope
mean,
not, because he was out there with 2 fouls to pick up the third. So the
yeah,
math would tell you to keep him in there in the second quarter. But
I mean, it's gonna. He already doesn't play much defense, right? So just kind of let him walk into the paint and then let Clint Capella do the rest of the work. That's what I would hope for. But yeah. Anyway, what did you ask?
anybody from a volume perspective, like the Kevin Knoxes of the world who just take a ton of shots when they're out there. I know Moutier's back, but
Terrible.
yeah, he's in the rookie wall. Like his athleticism
Yeah.
isn't dominating anymore for them. So
Right. No, look, I'm sure he'll be fine, but right now he's pretty terrible. And his minutes have come down. One of them was foul trouble, but I don't know about the other one. Uh, nah, that there's not enough volume there, not enough minutes right now for me to get excited about that. I just can't. And, I'm not looking to Tim Hardaway. If any, no, I don't think we need to go much further with this.
Landry Shamet.
I could talk about it. Yeah, I could talk about a ton of guys, but it probably doesn't do us all that much good.
Is it Shamet? Shamet? How are we pronouncing
Landry Shamet.
Shamet.
Some say Shamet, but yeah, it's not Shamet. It's Shamet or Shamet. I mean, he is remaining in the starting lineup, so there's that. And I guess
he's got that going for him.
Yeah, exactly. I guess we'll mention this before we move on, just because. So they won that last game. I think it was like a 27-point win over Phoenix. And Shamet started the first quarter, played 8 minutes, played 6 minutes in the second quarter. So you got 14 minutes. And then he played 9.5 minutes in a third quarter. So assuming he closed the game out and played 6 minutes to close the game out, well, you're looking at around 29, maybe 30 minutes from him. He never returned in the fourth quarter. The game was a complete wash. They were up by 30 points 2 minutes into the fourth. So yeah, that's actually really interesting. None of the starters returned after, the final 15 minutes of the game. There wasn't a single starter that returned. They never relinquished any of that lead. It's not crazy to consider Shamet, but I know that he's still going to be a low volume guy, and he's going to need to connect on his shots, because if he doesn't, it could be ugly.
All right, let's turn the page to power forward, where we have Paul George at the top, Kawhi. Then we get into a bunch of MPE. Blake, AD, who we've talked about. Lauri Markkanen is at 8,100. John Collins with a matchup with Detroit at 7,700. Aldridge getting over an illness, gets a matchup with Toronto at 76. Randle has to be a beneficiary here, right, of AD's minutes at 7,400. Harrell at 69 against the Memphis front court that could be very, very low staffed as we go into this game. And then you got the guys like Siakam. I'm so confused by Siakam's positional eligibility as this year has gone on. But anyway, what do you got at power forward?
Yeah, we talked about shooting guard and small forward being pretty weak. I think power forward opens up a little bit, at least. Blake Griffin against Atlanta. I mean, you have to have some interest there. I remember earlier this season, I'm pretty sure this is it. I'm going to look it up because I was furious. I'm almost certain it was, but they played Atlanta earlier this season, and almost every single player on the team, including I think Jose Calderon was even getting minutes at the time, had 10 points or more. No, I think Calderon was the one player that didn't. Maybe him and Zaza, but everyone else had 10 points or more. Here it is. Yep, here it is. Yet Blake Griffin finished with 6 points on 2 for 10 shooting, and they ended up winning in blowout fashion, so he never returned. But he had 9 assists and 9 rebounds in that game, and it was so frustrating. He actually hadn't taken a shot through like the first quarter and a half, but Drummond had 23, Jackson had 10, Bullock had 12, Robinson had 12, Johnson had 22, Ish Smith had 10, Langston Galloway had 16. Like everyone was producing in the scoring department except for Blake Griffin. And the truth is, in 2 games against Atlanta this season, he's been very, very pedestrian. But that doesn't mean I can't. Like, that doesn't mean I'm fading Griffin here. It's a very, very, very reasonable spot. His price point is 8,900 on DraftKings, 92 on FanDuel. I mean, it's not like there's anything not to like here outside of a couple games, which really mean nothing. I just remember how terrible that was because I had quite a bit of Blake Griffin. Pascal Siakam, yeah, I think he's fine. I don't love the spot against San Antonio.
What position would you say he plays? Like genuinely,
well,
like is he a power forward?
Yeah,
Okay.
because you have Serge Ibaka and Marcus Gasol getting all the center minutes.
It's just he's a weird cat. Like I watch his game and he's
pretty good.
He's more athletic than I think they give him credit. Seems to play a 3 at times, and I know it's positionless basketball, but it just seems like DK is fairly arbitrary with his positional eligibility at times.
He's a 4. He's a 4, and I don't hate him here, and I like him in the low 6K range, but you can't always get what you want. Lauri Markkanen.
If you try sometimes.
let's not go down that road. Lauri Markkanen is playing a ton of minutes. He's just been phenomenal. What I've been most impressed by is his rebounding, and he's even getting dishing out more assists recently. I think he's fine. John Collins, I want to see what the ownership projections come in on him with, because to me, I think John Collins could make for a really, really interesting option. Again, if he plays 35 minutes, that makes him a spectacular play. Will he? I don't know. That's yet to be seen. We've seen the minutes. We've seen Lloyd Pierce be wild with these minutes at times. Some of them foul trouble, some of them blowouts, but we know that he can play upwards of 35 minutes. As a tournament option, I'm perfectly okay with that. And then I guess we have to talk about Julius Randle, because if Davis is going to be playing, 25 minutes a game and Nikola Mirotic is making his debut in Milwaukee, then Randle, to me, is really intriguing. He's 7,400 on DraftKings. That just seems like a mispricing to me. 78 on FanDuel also seems like a mispricing to me. Maybe I'm wrong here, but it feels like he's in a really favorable spot, not matchup wise, but usage wise, and just in every other sense. He played 39 minutes against OKC last time out. 39 minutes in that game, and that game did not go to overtime. I know Anthony Davis only played 16 minutes, but he's not going to be playing that much more, than that. So I'm not at all opposed to Randle at that salary. I think it's too cheap. I also think that we at least have to talk about this guy too, and Bobby Portis. He's going to be all over the map. There's no question. And he might play 28 minutes. He might play 31 minutes, depending on how he's shooting. But I'm really not that worried about the front court defense for Charlotte. Cody Zeller statistically does not make their defense better. He definitely helps Kemba Walker, but he doesn't make him better. And then I'll throw Sabonis out there. Sabonis could be, the top play on the slate from a point per dollar standpoint, depending on what we see, whether or not Miles Turner plays. But even at 5,500, Dan, if Turner does play, I think Sabonis is still really, really viable here against this Pelicans front court that ain't going to see a lot of Davis. And even so, they struggle to rebound. They don't do a good job of interior defense. Sabonis makes for an interesting option as well, even if Turner plays, and no one will own him.
That makes sense. I think we're going to have some decisions to make and some interesting ones here coming on our first bigger slate. I know 6-game slate on Thursday, but first 9-game slate after the All-Star break. Lots of moving pieces, news to watch. So you'll want to be tuned into the NBA Strategy Show Friday morning. And, of course, you do have the deep dive at 5 p.m. and live before lock. And then you have Adam writing the deep dive as well over there at Awesemo.com to read that and to get access to the projections, to the grades, to Alex's lineup builder, all those different things. You need to be an Awesemo subscriber to do that. You'll want to sign up using the promo code EARLYBIRD, one word, EARLYBIRD, and that gets you 50% off your first month of content at Awesemo.com. Let's close it out with some centers, Dave. Typically our deepest position on the year, at least on DK specifically, where we have MPE. You have Towns, Jokic, Vucevic, Andre Drummond, all at the top, 9K or above. Towns against New York, and what is it now? It's DeAndre Jordan. It's Mitchell Robinson. Okay, fine. You have Jokic against Dallas, Vucevic against Chicago, which seems like a prime spot for Vooch. And then Drummond against Atlanta stands out a bit at 9K as well. Let's start at 9K and above, and then we'll move into the middle ground. Who do you like the best here?
All right, let's do it. Yeah, well, I think you're right too that it really has been the deepest position, along with point guard. They've both been ridiculously deep. Karl Anthony Towns against the Knicks. I definitely have interest in Towns. He went into the break pretty quiet. There's no doubt denying that. Like he was putting up some monster gains and then was just living in that mid 40s, mid to high 40s, which isn't going to get the job done. Against New York, though, I don't see any reason to be opposed to it. A bad Minnesota team facing an even worse Knicks team, 220 total here. Towns is a very strong play, and I don't think he's overpriced. I mean, it was better when he was 9,900, but I don't think we're going to complain about this either. He's 10-8 on FanDuel. I'm okay with that. Drummond, 10-9 on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, Drummond weighs in at 9K flat. I think that's also very, very reasonable. Pace up spot, you're going to see more shot blocking opportunities, more rebounding opportunities. Atlanta also leads the league in turnovers. No team has turned the ball over or allowed more steals to opponents than the Atlanta Hawks have this season. So Drummond is actually pretty solid when it comes to racking up steals. He's averaging 1.6 steals per game. Really impressive, actually. You wouldn't expect that to be the case. And the Hawks have also been blocked the fourth most in basketball. Sorry. Everything kind of lines up nicely for Andre Drummond to have a big game. And I'm not worried about him being able to produce in the paint. Also, Vucevic. I have Vuce behind Drummond, but I still like him as well. And he's been an absolute animal this season. The top of the position, this is what I talked about at the top of the show. It's going to make things very interesting because you also have Jokic. And Jokic is actually less expensive than Karl Anthony Towns on DraftKings. To me, this is a really favorable spot. I mean, there's really I respect Rick Carlisle and what he's been able to do defensively with this team when you really don't have the personnel. You're talking about Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber and maybe Salah Mesri gets some minutes. Like this is a really, really good spot for Jokic. I think this has got to be a spot where he comes through with really big numbers. And I do prefer him at the $300 discount over Karl Anthony Towns.
All right. What do you make in the mid-tier? Does anybody stand out as a potential disruptor of that top end of center?
If Miles Turner plays, he's really a great option. We just have to see if he's going to play. I would imagine if he does play, there's no reason to believe he'll be limited. So keep a close eye on that. He at 6,400. I love him, and Sabonis, if Turner is out, is also going to be someone that you'd plug right in, because why would you not? Sabonis at that price point, you're just not getting away from that. There's no way. You have your Dwight Powells and such, but that's not fun. Luke Cornett's really cheap. Maybe he gets 25 minutes. But I think we'll close it out just breaking down the Memphis situation that we started to talk about earlier in the night. And by the way, my guy, Mitchell Robinson, I will take credit for getting on that one before the trend began. Mitchell Robinson is not going to play consistent minutes. We don't know what type of run he's going to get. You're a Knicks fan, right?
Yep.
You might have something nice in Mitchell Robinson. I really like what I've seen from him.
I mean, he's a hell of an athlete. He, what was it, Western Kentucky, where he ended up, I think, when all was said and done, out of high school and didn't even end up playing there. Kid was a top prospect, just didn't have the head together for the college game, and hasn't been playing basketball forever. And I think if they keep DeAndre Jordan around for the reason to mentor him, I'm all for that. He could be a fun 5 in the new NBA. Like, he could be a fun run and gun lob and go after it, sort of defensive shot blocker as well. They had one in Porzingis, but hell, that's fine. But I think Robinson could be a lot of fun moving forward. Yeah,
and his block rate has been phenomenal. I mean, really, really, really good. He's averaging 17 minutes per game, which isn't a lot. But, if you were to take blocks per game among players that are playing at least, or blocks per 36 among players that are averaging at least 17 minutes per game. Mitchell Robinson, unless you're including like Robert Williams and Chris Boucher, which you're not because they've played far fewer games. Mitchell Robinson leads the league in blocks per 36. He also has a 10.1% block rate, which is insane. I mean, he stuffed Embiid a few times at the rim and really looked good. I don't think it's crazy to consider Robinson here, 4,500. Clearly tournament only play, but I do think that he's going to continue to offer upside. And with the way the season's gone for the Knicks, as expected, you might begin to see Mitchell Robinson finally start to get more consistent run, and that would make him a really, really, really strong, cheap option until his price tag catches up with his production. So we'll close it with Memphis. If we know Jovel's out, if Jaren Jackson sits, Joakim Noah already to me is viable in tournaments because I think he probably plays around 20 minutes, and he's old, but he's still a +1 fantasy point per minute guy. Facing a pace-up Clippers team that really struggles against opposing fives, whether it's Gortat or whether it's Zubats, doesn't really matter, or whether it's the undersized Harrell. You've got to like that. But if Jaren Jackson is out, I like Noah even more. And Ivan Robb should go back to seeing probably around. That's a tough one to say. I'd probably put him around 23, 25 minutes here if Jackson plays. But if he doesn't, he's going to get up over 30 minutes. Noah probably is going to play 24, 25 minutes, and things are going to get really interesting. Doesn't matter if they're not a good team. You have no Jovel. You might not have Jaren Jackson, and that would open things up a lot. Well, Kyle Anderson also out, so you can't just easily move some guys from the 3 to the 4. You got a few, but they're not going to be able to. Chandler Parsons isn't going to be able to pick up those minutes. That could open a lot up at the front court for this Memphis team. So we got to keep a close watch on that.
Oh, it's always a good NBA DFS slate where things depend on the Memphis Grizzlies. Let's be honest.
Isn't that the truth?
So Friday, you get Adam writing the deep dive. Again, you need to be a member and subscriber over at awesemo.com to do that. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD to sign in when you check out, I should say. You use that in the coupon code section and it gets you 50% off your first month. You can always find us on the Early Bird Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's Dave and myself. And then you get EMAC and Adam Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Most weeks of late, it has been me and Adam Wednesday morning, Dave and EMAC on Thursday mornings. So stick with us for that schedule. Any final thoughts here, Dave? We do have to do, I would be remiss if at the start of the All-Star, back from the All-Star break, if I didn't ask you, 10K or above, it's Jokic, Towns, George, or Westbrook. Who do you got?
I think right now I'm going to lean Jokic.
All right, so Jokic at 10-1 against Dallas is where we're starting the day. So as you get to the NBA Strategy Show and then the deep dive, you get 2 live shows, 1 tape show of Dave on Friday from awesemo.com. So you get a lot of content from at Lofty_D, that's LOUGHY_D over on Twitter. You can find me at Dan Straver, and of course, it's at awesemo_com. Into the weekend, you get Dave on Sirius XM, Sirius 210, XM 87 on Saturday and Sunday. If you so choose, you can find me Saturday mornings on FNTSY Radio from 8 to 11. And then you find us back here on Monday morning. Any final thoughts here, Dave, before we say so long?
Good show, man. We will be back with you next week. You and I will, at least.
Yep, there it is. You get EMAC and Adam Saturday morning right here on your DFS Early Bird, presented by awesemo.com.